Today's guest on the Travel Punks podcast is Dylan Ogline, founder of Ogline Digital and the laptop entrepreneur training program Agency 2.0, which teaches aspiring entrepreneurs to build lean, mean, and scrappy six-figure digital agencies so they can quit their dead-end jobs, travel the world, and live life to the fullest. We talk about what it's like to run your business from the terrace of a Bangkok condo, shit on boomers for the 11 millionth time, contemplate the end of the orthodox system of American education, and reminisce about his childhood spent getting drunk in the back of limos that were owned by his friend's family-owned chauffeur company in Pennsylvania. To learn more about him and from him, check out DylanOgline.com. That's DylanOgline.com. In addition to following our podcast, make sure to follow the Travel Punks YouTube channel, hit the bell icon so you get notifications of our new videos, follow the Travel Punks on Facebook, and on Instagram, follow @CreditCarson and @PaulGreenemeyer. Hold on. If we talk about some garbage that we don't want actually in the podcast because it's completely uninteresting, then Tristan can edit it out, and that'll be nice.
Tristan, your edit guy?
Yeah, he's really
I gotta be honest,
good.
man. I've done this will be like podcast. What the fuck is up with my cord? This will be like podcast number 30 for me.
Getting good at it?
This is the one I am most excited for.
Because I'm not going to ask you about digital ads.
You're not going to ask me about marketing. It's going to be like, I mean, we can obviously go whatever direction you want to go in, but I presume we're going to be like talking about travel and we're going to say shit and fuck. And
I do like saying shit and fuck. I'm sure you saw that in my YouTube videos and podcasts. They were like,
videos.
Yes, these are my people. Finally.
Absolutely, man. I watched your the City Prestige card.
Yeah.
You're like, you could fucking kill somebody with this card.
Yeah. You can slit someone's throat. It's made of metal.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty. It's pretty slender, and I just get such an insane, probably pornographic satisfaction out of just smacking those metal cards against tables. It's just the most satisfying thing. I
won't say this has got to be cut out of the podcast. Not to interrupt you, but
we'll see about that. No, if you want it out, it's out. Don't worry about that.
I know. I tell my girlfriend, like, when I pull out the platinum card, I'm like, I am fully erect right now.
We'll talk about whether or not that should stay in because I fucking love that. But do other podcasters ask you to watch your language? They're like, by the way, this is a family-friendly podcast.
I always ask because one time I did. I don't think you've seen it yet. With the lady and I said, damn. And she was like, oh, we try to keep this PG-13. So that was like number 3 for me or something. So
you can say like 3 fucks and still have a PG-13 now. We are a culture of degenerates.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. No. So since then, I always just to respect the host. I mean, I know that you're going to be fucking down with it, but just to respect the host, I'm always like, what is your length? What do you like to keep things as? And do you allow swearing? Like, can I say damn it? Right. Can I say fuck? Or do you want me to keep it very tame? And I never like you've probably listened to the more extreme ones. I'm not like fucking shit. Yes. I'm like,
we are indulging ourselves a little bit right now. Just
yes. Yeah.
Drunk with the power.
It's not like crazy, but sometimes I will.
Sometimes it's fun. Shit. I mean, my cousin who's in the Navy decried how common swear words had become in the culture because he thought they served an actual purpose, where if someone needs to get to the foredeck right fucking now, then you want to be able to have that cultural power still within the swear word. Whereas if it's just being used to emphasize every single word, like, that's fucking amazing that you brought a bottle opener, like that is not fucking
kind of loses
That's
its
pretty
touch.
Standard. Yeah. So I don't like to ask people to repeat themselves, where it's like, tell again the same story that you told me that I already know about. But I think it's a good jumping off point. I want to hear again the story about that 18-year-old dude that you mentored and who asked you about the digital nomad lifestyle.
Is this the show now? Are we already in the show?
We've been recording.
You don't even do an intro. Wow. You're an animal.
I am an animal.
Okay. All right. So
I'm going to pre-record a little intro so people know what's going on if they've gotten.
I didn't
this
listen
far.
to any of you. I'm not going to waste my time listening to your podcast, to be honest.
No one does, really.
So, I listened to, there was one with, it was on, I only looked at your YouTube, I think. And there was one with some girl, but she was actually in person. And I'm like, oh man,
Yeah.
I'm so jealous of that. Like sitting across from somebody and doing a podcast.
Yeah, I like doing that when I can.
Yeah. So the context. So for listeners out there who don't know, I was mentoring this like 18, 19-year-old kid. And he was just like a family friend, essentially. And he, I actually think I talked to him recently. This is probably like a year or two ago. And he worked at like a dead end job. Like I think he worked at Dunkin' Donuts. Like he's making $7-8 an hour. And I take him out. We're going to grab coffee, and he's just like bouncing like ideas off of me. He's like, I want your life. Like, I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to see the world. I don't want to just spend the rest of my life in this town. He wants to make a little bit more money, but he doesn't necessarily want to make big bucks. It's just like, I just want to get out of this town. And like the idea of being somewhere for like 3 months and working while I'm there, but still being able to explore the city, like that was his dream. And the question he eventually asked me is like, is it as cool as I think it is? Like, is it really that cool? And I'm like, dude, no, it's not. Like, no matter how high your expectation is, like if your expectation is it's going to be life-changing, it's going to be the coolest thing ever, no matter how high the expectation is, it is too damn low. Like it is beyond anything that I could ever put words into. Being able to be in some random far off city and be outside the United States, be outside your comfort zone, and knowing that you have several weeks, a month, 2 months where you can just explore the city, the culture at leisure. That is, can't put words into it. Can't put words into it. How incredible and amazing that is.
Yeah. And at the time, you must have been talking about Thailand, or at least thinking about Thailand, because that was the most recent big trip you took. We're both Tim Ferriss fans. Do you think about them as mini retirements?
No, I never think of it that way. I think whenever he used that term, that's more for kind of convincing people that have like a full-time job or something, not people who like own their own business or something like that. And so, no, I don't think of it. And for context, I think whenever I had that conversation with that guy, he was, this was like 2 weeks after I got back from Thailand. So yeah, I think we probably were talking about Thailand at the time.
Did you go to Thailand by yourself?
Yes.
And you were in Bangkok and Chiang Mai. Where else? I don't even remember. Don't remember the names.
I am horrendous at remembering city names. Mm-hmm. I've been to a ton of like small places in Europe and whatnot. I couldn't tell you any. Like I remember like the Athens and the Romes of the travels, but outside of that, I'm like, I don't know what that place was called. So I don't. But most of that trip was in. I think I spent like 1 or 2 days in. Was that Hong Kong? I think it was Hong Kong.
Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Yeah. My cousin in the Navy, his favorite cities of all time in the world, I don't know if it's changed since then. It's been a while since we talked about this, but his favorites were Hong Kong and Tokyo. And he and I are very different guys. I went to Tokyo and I liked it, but it wasn't one of my favorites. But also I think I just kind of went at the wrong time. And also I was just kind of testing the waters of my own digital entrepreneur lifestyle. And the person that I came there to visit, she also lived kind of far out of the city center. So I think if I'd like lived in the center of the shit, it might've been a little bit different. But her attitude was like, why are you working so much? I'm like, shut up. I'm trying to do something. I'm trying to prove something to everyone. But I did get to do some sightseeing. Yes, absolutely. And I'm curious I was curious because you seem to have gotten a lot out of your Thailand experience. I was curious to what your work schedule, your work day in Thailand was like.
It's pretty much the same as what it is here. I think you and I have talked about this earlier. I had planned, my goal for 2020 was to spend, I think it was 90 days nonstop outside the country. And like I wanted to spend 30 days nonstop in Japan. It would have looked pretty similar to like what I'm doing now. Probably a little bit more exploring. I still work like 40 hours a week. To me, it's not necessarily the amount of work. I could certainly work a lot less. To me, it's the freedom to work on what you want, when you want, and pre-COVID, where you want. Because I'm passionate about my work. I like to do something productive, but I hate the idea of being constricted and like I have to work 9 hours today or 8 hours today. Like the whole 9 to 5 concept would just I've done it a little bit. It drove me insane, and I could never go back to that. I still work the same amount of hours, but it's like if like this afternoon, my girlfriend and I, the weather's nice. I have a break between any kind of calls or anything. I'm like, we're going to go for a little hike. Like that's mission critical in my life.
But being a business owner is its own thing. I mean, sometimes there are calls that you have to make, deadlines that you have to make, podcasts that you have to appear on.
Yeah, is the podcast
assholes you got to talk to?
I got to talk to these like annoying people.
Right.
Well, only one. I love most of the podcasts. Yeah. I think if you're a business owner, you can fall into the trap of, I don't have a good term for it, but like it's mostly an addiction to being available. So it took me time with my business to like put rules and systems in place where like nobody knows my some of my team know my phone number, like my actual personal cell phone number. They have never used it. They've never needed to, but like they know, like if the world's collapsing, then you call me. Otherwise, I never want to talk to you. Send me an email. Most of the time I'm like, that's probably good enough. Like if it's mission critical, like the world's falling apart, call me. But otherwise, just send me an email and I'll probably get back to you in a day or two. With a lot of business owners, they become addicted to being available. It's like notifications on like Facebook and Snapchat and Instagram and stuff like that. Like you become addicted to like constantly people like, hey, we want to talk to you. That gets addicting and you have to actively fight that. So, as a business owner,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, on the leading edge of the millennial generation, I have a thoroughly millennial aversion to phone calls, which by their nature have to happen right now. And I know some older generations see a phone call as being more respectful. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe it's because they think it gets done quicker instead of a lot of back and forth. But to me, that's just like someone showing up into my apartment or in my house. And back when I had a sales career that was more revolving around the phone and being available, I felt compelled to answer my phone at all hours of the night. And I didn't have to. That was entirely coming from inside of me that I was like, this could be money. I need to answer. But
most of the time
then I would I would have to pick up the phone. I would have to perform. It didn't matter how I was feeling. And it got to the point where I was like literally hiding under a table away from my phone.
It's depressing.
Yeah.
Like my phone 100% of the time is on vibrate and it is on do not disturb. So I have an iPhone and you can set the do not disturb. I think they're called favorites. So like if my girlfriend calls me or, some of my family members, they call me or like my team are in there. Like if they call me, it'll bypass that do not disturb. There's like 9 people in that favorite list. Otherwise, if you're not on that list, it immediately goes to voicemail. I never see the notification. Like you have to take the steps to block that device off. And I think going back, if you're a business owner or you're self-employed, you can definitely, you're always like, oh, that could be a sale coming in. But dude, what's the purpose of doing this? What's the purpose of having your own business if you're constantly checking your email or checking your text or checking your phone?
There's also an aspect of cutting the cord and letting people and empowering people on your team to do their jobs and not and letting them understand that they are capable. That's going to make them better at their jobs.
100%. Like I think you and I have talked about this before. Like with my team members, in the beginning, I'm like, I'm 100% available to you. If I'm onboarding somebody, but I come out and I tell them like, if I don't talk to you for like 6 months, that's awesome. I don't want you to think that you can't, you can send me a Skype message. You can do this. You can reach out to me if you need to. But like the ideal thing is like, I want to empower you to figure out, I want to teach you how to do your job, but I want you to figure out how to do it better and just do it. Like, I want to empower you to do your job. And if I never hear from you, that's awesome. And there's I think a lot of people appreciate that. Going back, one other thing is when it comes to like all these interruptions, you can't do like good quality creative work if somebody's constantly pinging you, you're constantly checking your email. There's a great, I think Paul Graham wrote it. It's a managers versus makers schedule. Have you ever read that?
No, I haven't.
It's like 500 words.
It's just a quote. Is there a book?
No. Well, that's a really long quote if it's 500 words.
Okay.
No, it's just like a short essay that he wrote. I think it's Paul Graham. If you just Google managers versus makers schedule, it's just this really short thing that like talks about how people that are doing kind of creative work, whether it's coding or writing or, presentations or anything like that, if you're doing creative work, you need to get really a deep dive into it. And just hearing that ping on your computer of like when an email comes in, like that's enough to kick you out of that focus, the zone. And I think a lot of people are shifting more to creative type of work. And I think it just gets more and more important to cut the cord, man.
Yeah, I have to set expectations with some of my own clients because I communicate with a lot of them over chat. But if they don't really know who they're talking to, they get into the headspace that they're talking to chat support. They're so used to 24-hour chat support. And if some of them, not all of them, but if I don't respond to them in like 5 minutes, they'll be like, hello? And sometimes I come back after being away for 20 minutes. I was like, I guess you're not interested. It was actually very passive aggressive a couple of times. I'm like, hi, I was at the gym. I was eating lunch. I answered my own shit.
Yeah, I was going to shower.
Well, sometimes if I do get in the zone, then I will keep people waiting for an hour. Or I even said that wrong. I meant multiple hours that I don't get back to people. And if it's mission critical for them, then I guess they'll move on. Or if it's important enough for them to work with me, then I guess they'll wait. And you can't win them all.
100%, man. I'm really big into, I think you've probably heard me talk about this before, firing bad clients.
Oh, yeah. And that's a big Tim Ferriss thing.
Yeah.
And a big everyone thing.
Fire the people. If I had like a live chat, which I don't with any of my clients, but if I had like a live chat thing or they could contact me on Skype or something and they send me a message and then like 20 minutes later, they're like, hello, boom, that's done. Relationship done. I might give you one other chance, but that's not the kind of I don't want to work with those types of people. So me, I would be like, listen, I think you're a great person. I think your company is awesome, but I don't think that we're necessarily a great culture fit. That's an excuse I've used a lot.
I love that.
I don't think our cultures match up. So,
I might actually have to use that in a call that I have in like an hour and a half.
Fantastic, man. Use it and cut those people. And that allows you to get better and deliver better quality work to people. I also think it's so important to set rules. Like these are our standards. I think of it this way. Like I go to Chipotle a lot. Like I'm a Chipotle fanboy. If I go to Chipotle and I'm like, yo, I want a burrito with lobster. We're like, we don't serve lobster. Well, I want lobster. They'd probably kick me out after a little bit. Like they're not going to go and make me lobster. There's a little bit of variation, I'm sure. Like, can I have some extra tomatoes on that or something? But so many business owners, they get caught up and so being so desperate for the next job or to bring in the revenue that they allow their clients to walk all over them. Mm-hmm. And because they allow that, then they end up delivering poor quality. So. Yeah,
I like telling people that things are policy at this point, and I said all the policy.
It's company policy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's company policy. That just reminds me. It's kind of unrelated, but I got to dish about this for a second because I'm having an influx because my business is writing, my money business is writing, but I'm having an influx of people trying to get me to like write their exam essays for classes.
Really? That's a thing?
Really? Yeah, it's such a thing. And when you think
I
about
did that
it,
in college too.
oh yeah. See, it's like the plot of a bad college comedy or a high school comedy. There's the jock getting the nerd to write his essay so he can keep his grades up to compete in the big game, but then they get caught and they get stuck in Jumanji, and that's the plot. But
for reference out there for listeners, I'm actually a high school dropout, so I didn't go to college.
Yes. So you avoided all of those comedy tropes.
I avoided having the jocks tell me to write their essays.
Well, I hope that people listening to this are inspired that we're just such dicks that we're like, you know what? I don't need your money. There's such liberation in being like, I don't need your money. And you don't have to have a lot of money to benefit from that. I mean, even if things are a little tight, even if you are just starting up, like how much do you want to suffer? You can choose how much you suffer at the outset. And some of the people who are the most picky, they'll end up leaving you a bad testimonial because you didn't hop to. So in the long term, it's absolutely 100%. Not. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's almost counterintuitive. It's not necessarily like, oh, I don't want your money, because I've gotten that feedback before. I have fired bad clients, and their response was basically like, "Must be nice to turn down work or to have so much work coming in." And
that's like, delicious. Nom nom nom. I love that.
That's not the point. The point is that, I service multiple people. I can't deliver good quality or do what I need to do if you're constantly being an asshole to me. Like, again, there's a certain level of sure, I'll work with a client, but if you're just going to be a dick, like, dude, go away. Like you're not a good culture fit. And again, it's counterintuitive where some people are like, I want to get to the point where I can turn away work, or I have so much work, or I don't need the money. I argue that by turning away those people, you actually make more money. Like it'll make you better. Your clients or customers that do appreciate you, that are your ideal people, you'll be able to deliver a better product or service, whatever, to that person. They'll appreciate more, and they'll come back more and more.
That's so true, and that's so hard to hear for people who are at the beginning, who are worried about where the next meal is going to come from, or how soon they can quit the job that they hate. And you must have had to cope with a lot of that through your coaching program, where you're teaching people to do what you do, which is run digital agencies.
Yeah.
Where people are just what do I do about this person? They want me to like touch my toes and dance like a ballerina. Like, what should I do about that? And you're like, if your response is like, fire them, they're like, well, I can't let them go. They're business.
It's harder to, it's one of like the first things that I talk to people about, because it's easier to have never become a drunk than it is to quit being an alcoholic.
Man, where were you 10 years ago for me?
You know what? I had a drinking problem probably when I was like 17. I grew up like my parents were feeding me booze on like school nights. That's a different story.
That is quite the round table you came from in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
I think I stole booze from my parents' liquor cabinet like once in suburban California. And if my dad's listening to it, that's probably the first he heard about it right now. Sorry, Dad.
This is absolutely a true story. My parents' friends owned a limo company. Like it was really small town. Like, they had like older limos, and like people would rent them for prom or whatever. And like every Wednesday, I think it was, we would, like, they had a son. He was like a year older than me. So like we got along, and I'm like 11, 12, 13 at this time. Like on Wednesday nights, school nights, we would all get in the limo and drive like an hour to go eat at some restaurant. And they would give me booze. Like typically it was like Mike's Hard Lemonade or beer. And I'm like 12 or 13. And I would get drunk on school nights. And I didn't know any better, and go to school the next day with a hangover. Like that was me at 12 or 13.
Man, dropping out of
Didn't
school.
expect talking about that on this show.
Well, it's all about the fun here at the Travel Punks. But if that had been my reality in school, it might have seemed to be more of a living reality that I didn't have to like walk this story that everyone lives in, that I pretty fervently believe is a trap, or is more of a trap than people realize. The story of the go to school, get good grades, get a college degree, get a good job, you'll have it made, get a master's degree. And I keep track in my mind. I'm like keeping score about how people used to, like in my parents' generation, like getting a high school degree would get you a job. Then it was a bachelor's degree. Then it was a master's degree. I'm like, is no one worried about this? What's it going to be next? 2 master's degrees, PhD. It's like inflation faster than the currency. Our education is getting inflated and devalued because everyone has a degree.
I would actually argue we're at a tipping point. I think we have reached the point with technology and whatnot where more and more people are creating training programs, courses like me. And this is self-serving by all means, but more and more people are creating training programs, creating courses that are very niche down and specific, where I'm not even going to talk about myself because again, that's self-serving, but you can go take a $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 course training program and learn how to start a bookkeeping business that makes $200,000-$300,000 a year. I personally know people who have done that. I know people who sell or are extremely successful at having those programs. Photographers, you don't need to go to college to be a photographer. And I could go in 100 different directions. I think the definition of work is changing. I think the definition of education is changing. There's going to be a lot more people who are like, I want to do, they want to start a digital marketing agency. Again, I'm going to serve myself here. So
we can totally talk about your digital marketing agency and your training. It's called Agency 2.0. You don't have to talk about it. I'll talk about it. It's called Agency 2.0, and it's a program to teach people to run lean, mean, and scrappy digital agencies where they can build a 6-figure, 7-figure laptop lifestyle like the inimitable Dylan O'Glein.
Yes,
you can grow up to be just like him,
just like me. But I would argue that there's going to be so many people that are going to, like that kid I was talking about, who are going to realize, like, why would I go spend $100,000 on a college education, go into all this debt when I can take these programs, these training programs, these courses. And there is some scammy shit out there, but a lot of it's really good quality. I've personally taken a lot of it. I've taken a bunch of courses. I invest a lot in education. I invest a lot in masterminds. It's really good stuff. And it's now gotten to the point where it's so niche down and so specific that you can have a very targeted interest. You could want to start a food blog, and there are training programs out there on how to teach you how to start and grow your own food blog.
And those training programs get a reputation for being a little bit scammy because they're not accredited. Pretty much anyone can put one together. You've got to look into who you're learning from and whether or not they actually do the thing that you're trying to learn how to do. And also, I mean, I think that so many of these programs, you got to decide whether it's right for you. Like I took some of these programs as well, and in many cases there was just maybe not a good fit. They had a good sales pitch, but the way they were teaching was not well suited for the product, or maybe it just wasn't going to be my thing. I was like, well, this is interesting and I can see how it works, but I don't have the fire to make this work. And that can seem like it's a scam if it doesn't work for everyone. But my trump card is that the most expensive scam education that I personally imbibed that ended up not producing any results for me was an Ivy League education. Because I have an Ivy League degree that I ended up going on to do nothing with. And that's a long story in and of itself, but because it's part of that story. Like if you get into that school, who doesn't go to that fucking school? It's and everyone assumes you've got it made, but my journey ended up being so much stranger than that. And in a way, I wouldn't change it, but I also wouldn't mind having that tuition back.
It's a lot of wasted money. Quick comment. You were talking about like the scammy and I think I would advise to people, if you're looking at a training program, to start your own digital agency with Agency 2.0 with Dylan Oakline, or you're looking at the people who have bookkeeping courses, or the food blog people, or there's a million different courses out there. I think what's most important is not their pitch, none of that. Look at the person. Do you feel like you would vibe with them? Which is, I know that's not specific, but like, when you're listening to their videos, don't look at it and be like, oh, that motivates me, or like, oh, that sounds so exciting. Like, do you think the person's cool? Like, would you sit down and like have a beer with that person or a cup of coffee? Like, does that apply to that person? Because I think when a lot of it comes down to motivation and like the coaching aspect. And if you just like hate the sound of the person's voice, or you're like, that person's so annoying, you're probably not going to be motivated to follow the advice. But if you're like, that person's so cool, like I really like that person, I think that goes a long way. It's similar to like selecting a college that like the environment excites you. It's the same concept.
That's so true. And I remember you saying something similar to that in a different podcast, and it got me thinking, because I connected really hard with Tim Ferriss. Mm-hmm. I know you did too, but then there's guys like Gary Vaynerchuk, who I know that a lot of people respect him. Obviously, he's a very high performer. He's very inspirational to a lot of people, but I would just rather swallow glass than listen to him. I'm just like, ooh, this guy rubs me the wrong way. And he probably wouldn't be mad at me for saying that, because he knows that he rubs some people the wrong way. I was just like,
absolutely,
more power to him if you get results from this approach. Another one is Grant Cardone. I mean, I just get exhausted listening to him, where he's like the 10X, always be running at walls.
He's always like, whoa. He's like always pumped up.
Yeah. It's great if that works for some people, and if for some people that's the kick in the ass they need. But if I tried to operate at that level, I would have burnt out. And what's in my room on a little chalkboard, I don't have a lot of like, what do you call them?
Books?
I have a lot of books. I don't have a lot of meditations or like affirmations that I say or that I keep written down. I don't do a lot of that. But the one thing I have on a chalkboard in my room is something that I heard from Tim Ferriss somewhere. I associate it with him. Maybe it was in one of his Tools for Titans things, but it's no hurry, no pause. And I was like, that's me. No hurry, no pause.
Ryan Holiday one.
Oh yeah? Maybe it was.
Don't quote me on that. But
I'm sure Ryan Holiday was in Tools of Titans, but
I'm absolutely.
I mean, fucking everyone was. You were probably in Tools of Titans, but
I will know.
We're all in Tools of Titans, and we don't know it. We're all making Tim money. We're talking about him right
now. I will know I have. I will consider myself successful. I write this down, put it in the record books. If I am on the Tim Ferriss show or in the next Tools of Titans 2.0, that's when I'll know I've made it.
but you would never hear Grant Cardone talking about no hurry, no pause. It would be no pause, and by all means hurry would be the Grant Cardone version.
Hustle and all that stuff. But it's like you say, like Gary Vee is really motivational to a lot of people. But if it just doesn't rub you the right way, like. I heard somebody talking once about this is similar to like morning routines. Somebody was looking for. I was at like a mastermind, and the person was talking about like what morning routine do you follow, and like who do you follow for morning routine, and like I'm looking for the best morning routine, and it's like the best morning routine, the best diet, the best business advice, all of that's the best workout is one that you actually follow, one that you actually do. Like there's a million different variations of workouts or morning routines or business practices. Like they're all probably pretty good. What matters is which ones you actually follow, stick to, and actually take action with. And a lot of that just comes down to who you vibe with, who you like to listen to. And Gary Vee, I'm 100% sure he has a really unique, great sounding, incredible advice. But if you're annoyed by his voice and listening to him, you're not going to listen to the advice. I might have a great training program, but if you hate the sound of my voice, or you're like, I want to punch that guy in the face, you're probably not going to take any action with my training program. So don't buy it.
Yeah.
Buy the one where you're like, I like this guy, or I like this girl, or like, this.
And that positivity is so important, because there's this tribal mentality of people are like, oh, you don't like Gary Vee? Well, you're going to fail. I'm like, no. And when I was younger and not sure whether I was going to be able to pull off the kind of lifestyle that I wanted, then I would take that to heart. I was like, really? Maybe I am going to fail. Maybe I'm doomed because I don't like Gary Vaynerchuk, or because I can't 10x like Grant Cardone every minute of the day. Or, I remember Tim was like, when interviewing people, everyone said they were morning people. Everyone said they were early risers. I was thrilled when a high performer was a night owl, because I was like, because Tim was a night owl, and I relate to that. And he was like, wow, you actually can have a successful life if you don't wake up at 4:30 in the morning. If it works for you, do it.
You get at least 5 a.m. If you don't wake up by 5 a.m., you're a loser. Absolutely.
Okay, good to know.
But no, like I look at, I think it is. I got my Tim Ferriss collections like over there.
If you need the reference, take a moment.
No, I think it's is it Tools of Titans, where like he interviewed and asked like the same questions to all these people? Is that the one?
It's either Tools of Titans or Tribe of Mentors. I get those confused. They both have "of" in the title and the same number of syllables. I'm sure he split tested that.
100%, yeah. But no, like looking for commonalities like meditation, or waking up early, or you trying to bust out this creative work first thing in the morning. Like looking for ideas from different people is a fantastic idea. But like a perfect example for me is like, you talk to Tim and he will tell you, like, if you're a writer or you're doing creative work, like the first thing in the morning, you should do that stuff. Like you should spend 1 to 2 hours first thing in the morning. That just doesn't work for me. Like for me, I like to bust out my email, check all the notifications, get that stuff out of the way. And then I have the discipline where I'm like, I'm not going to check that stuff for the rest of the day. Now I'm going to do my creative work. Of course, every now and then I have like these annoying podcasts that I have to do.
Talk to some assholes.
Yeah, talk to this asshole Paul guy. But other than that, like it's I bust out that stuff in the morning and then I do the creative work. You talk to Tim and that's the exact opposite advice of what he would say. And a lot of other people are the same way, where like they do their creative work in the morning. Me, I like to get the requirements for the day done and then handle my creative work. I just found what works best for me. So
I appreciate that. This is going to be a weird question, but my Travel Punks partner, Carson, is going to kill me if I don't ask it. So your business with Ogline Digital revolves around setting people's digital ads for them, and you take a percentage over and above, which is one of the things that Agency 2.0 teaches people to do, run digital ads for people.
Yes.
When Facebook charges a credit card to be like, this is what you spent on ads, are they charging Dylan Ogline's credit card or the client?
They charge the client.
I can see why that's important from a risk assessment standpoint.
You're thinking like, oh my God, this guy travels from all the points.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I was going to, shit.
That
would have been so fucking nice.
It would be.
Oh my God.
It's not worth the risk.
I'm sure you do. Go ahead.
There's so much ad spend going through that it's just not worth it. But I thought about it. Especially because I was listening to a couple of your YouTube videos. You're talking about the American Express cards, which is unfortunately what I use now. My favorite card is the Chase Ink card.
Oh, yeah.
And they give you 3 times points on advertising spend, which is Facebook or Google, up to I think it's $300,000 a year.
Yeah.
So you can get basically 1 million points off of $300,000 in spend. Well, I mean, as much ad spend as we're managing, like that's no big deal. And for context for listeners out there, what we do is we charge the client 10% of whatever their ad spend is. So say the client spends a total of $25,000 between Facebook and Google ads. At the end of the month, we will then send them an invoice for $2,500. They spend $80,000. We send them an invoice for then $8,000. We charge them 10% of whatever we managed.
And the beauty of that is that it's basically the same amount of work for the $25,000 worth of ad spend as it is for the $80,000 worth of ad spend, even though it's almost 3 times, it's more than 3 times as much volume.
Absolutely. Essentially, it is. You do have to. Facebook's a little bit more of a pain in the ass, but once you get it,
I'm sure they'll be devastated.
Yeah, I'm sure
they'll be devastated to hear.
Mark's going to go cry. Once you get it going for the client, when we onboard a client, we're trying to make it profitable, et cetera, trying to figure out like the copy and what images work and like what the end customer is looking for, et cetera. There is some trial and error. It takes a lot of time in the beginning, but once you get it, like you said, if it works at 25,000 a month, you probably can just with Google, you just add 4 times the budget. With Facebook, you just copy your ads 4 times and boom. I mean, essentially that's pretty much what you're doing, and most of the work is in the beginning, and then scaling it up isn't the problem.
And the cool thing is that you're working with the same genre of customers. If we're following your Agency 2.0 advice, you're working with the same kinds of businesses. So once you figure it out for one business, it's so much quicker to follow the same winning formula with a similar business.
Yeah. That's so one of the things I teach is to niche down. Everybody talks about niching down, but I apply that to my business, and I apply that to what I teach. And if you're doing ads for an example, I always use like plastic surgeons. Then all you do is you're helping plastic surgeons get more patients. And you're just bouncing around from different regions. Like you have clients in Florida, and then you have clients in say Texas, and then you have some in New York. What worked in Florida is probably going to work for the client in Texas, and what worked in Texas is probably going to work for the client in New York. And you learn what the end customer's needs and desires are. I like to say if you could describe the customer's problem better than they will automatically assume that you have the solution. And that's like the holy grail of marketing. Like if you can figure that out. Mm-hmm. And if you get it to be profitable with one client, you're going to get better and better and better. You're going to scale up. You're going to continue to get better and better. And then as you have more clients, it's a snowball effect. It feeds on itself.
That's awesome. I'm sorry to hear that you don't get the 3x points or the 4x points on the hundreds of thousands of dollars in ad spend that are flowing through Ogline Digital every month. But I also don't want you to be on the hook for a $100,000 bill from Facebook. And also, once you get to the point where you have like a 7-figure agency for 7 clients, from 7 clients, like bootstrapping your airfare becomes less of a stress. I would think the only fun thing is that with that many points, it's just so much more efficient to book business class and first class with points, because even if you can afford to spend 10 times as much on a cash seat in business class, why would you do it when it's only twice as much or 3 times as much for points? That's just basic economics. One thing is getting you more value.
I've never done business class.
You're going to go over the dark side.
I think that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried that if I do it once, I will feel uncomfortable going back.
Well, now let me reassure you that that's so fucking true. That will absolutely happen. I was afraid to go over to the dark side, and you know what? I'm not a bitch. I can still hack a long haul economy, but now I'm looking, now I'm shopping, especially when, I wanted to go to Turkey and I was thinking about, well, is it possible to socially distance on a plane? And let me just caveat that I feel very fortunate to have made it back from that trip without COVID. I was in a couple of airports where I was like, this is not good. If one of these people is in trouble, we're all in trouble. So I definitely had mixed feelings about that, but it was certainly a lot easier to socially distance in business class than it was in economy. I'll tell you that now.
I think the circulated air is the bigger problem there.
The newer planes with the
I know they
filtration system, the newer planes with the filtration systems actually recycle the air very efficiently, but that's when you're in the air. It's not when you're in the ground, and it's certainly not when you're in the customs line in the airport. So it's a little bit hairy. And now that we're coming in on a vaccine, I feel a little bit iffy about about doing that again. But if you're wondering what
do the vaccine,
I'm leaning yes. Because I'm not a scientist, but it seems like the safety data is pretty good. And I'm probably so low priority that there'll be some more safety data on the market by the time it's widely available. Yeah. I'm not an anti-vaxxer in general, and mostly I just want it to be. I'm vaccinated, and if I were to have children, I'd probably vaccinate them. But I just kind of want it to be over. So I reserve the right to change my mind if new shit comes to light. But currently, I'm pro put that shit in me. Like,
give me the juice.
Yeah. Let's go back to Thailand as we're finishing it out a little bit. Did you end up getting one of those yantra tattoos hammered into your flesh?
You know what? It was on my list this year to get one.
Yeah.
I didn't in that trip. I want to, at the time I was still doing my sleeve. So I didn't really know what was after that. I didn't know what I was going to do next. Now I've had a bunch of time since then. So I know I want to get one like in the middle of my back, just a small one at the top. But
those are cool. Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I got one.
You look like you're all inked up. Oh, you got one on your back, really?
I got one of those in Thailand. But I mean, it's going to be too much of a contortion for me to show that to you right now.
You're not going to take off your clothes for me?
No, that's later. That's after we stop recording. But yeah,
okay. All right.
It's there's a picture of the tattoo on my Instagram, but it's really cool looking. It's really painful. Of course you don't. But it's really painful.
I don't follow anybody.
Okay. Why are you so difficult?
It's all about efficiency, baby.
Yeah.
It's all about being really efficient. So
what's your goals when you pick a place to be for a long time? Because I know with Tim, it was like language and physical discipline. And I do like to learn a little bit of the language, although I wouldn't take a crack at Thai. I just wouldn't. Like, I can't start on any Asian language. I don't even have any of the Romance languages. Yeah.
I know some Spanish because that was like the first couple countries. It was hit up a lot of like Central America. Mm-hmm. So I did learn a little. I don't remember any of the Thai, but when I was there, I could mutter out a few phrases. So my goal was more about just getting into the culture. Like that's what it's all about for me. I don't necessarily like the language learning. I like to experience. I want to experience living like a local. Like I don't want to eat where the Americans eat or the Europeans eat when I'm in Asia. I want to eat where are the Thai people eating? Like I want to eat at the dumpy restaurant that they're eating at, the local restaurant. I want to stay like where they're staying, not at the hotel. So which I've only taken a couple trips so far that's been that kind of travel. But going forward, post-COVID world, that is kind of my goal, is to just really dive into, and I want to spend more time in certain cities. So like I mentioned, like staying 30 days nonstop in Japan, going nonstop. So you really get to know the city, get to know the transit system, all that stuff. You gets to kind of feel almost like a second home.
Do you have like an avenue, like a hobby or a discipline that you use to get into the local culture?
I I didn't in Thailand, but I realized this like 3 days prior to leaving. Like 2 minutes from where I was staying was, I think, like the only hockey rink
in Thailand.
And I was like, oh my God, I would have loved to have actually played hockey with Thai people in Thailand. Like that would have just been so cool. So, when I was in Europe with my girlfriend most recently, like that wasn't kind of an option. But I think if I go kind of longer term, post COVID, I will go play hockey at that rink in the middle of Bangkok.
And one of the cool things about, missing the chance to play hockey or get a tattoo, I try to get people to have a sense of abundance about travel. And that was particularly the case when I was flying to Turkey, where like, well, won't everything be closed? And the answer was like, yeah, but I'll just go back.
Yeah,
it'll still be there. And at this point, to not go is to just not go. Now, it's more complicated than that. I ended up quarantining for several days after I got back until I got tested. There was definitely an opportunity cost to going, and I certainly learned a lot. But I think travel abundance is flying halfway around the world just for a dad joke, just to say that you had Thanksgiving turkey. Like, if you're that much of an insolent prick with your travel, then you're my kind of insolent prick.
No, man, I 100% agree with that. A lot of people, I know people, we both, I'm sure, know people who have like never been outside the country. I can't even imagine that. Or people who are like, one day I want to go to Ireland and just, drive around for like 5 days. I'm like, 5 days? Like, I want to go to Ireland and drive around for like 3 weeks. And you've probably heard me talk about this. You've read Vagabonding, right? Have we talked about Vagabonding?
We've talked about Vagabonding, and I knew about it, but I have not read it.
Dude, that's pathetic. You need to go buy that book right now. Like, once we're done, once you take off your clothes, go buy that book. But at the beginning of the book, it tells the story of Bud Fox and Wall Street. The movie from the 80s.
Yeah, I was just watching that. Saying,
really?
Yeah.
That's random. But he says he's saying, I think he says to like Gordon, something along the lines of like, his goal is to make enough money, retire, and go to China and drive across China on a motorcycle. Like, that's his goal. And in Vagabonding, he uses that quote. Ralph Potts, I think, is the author's name. He uses that quote, and he says, what Bud doesn't realize is that you could scrub toilets in the United States and probably save enough money to go spend 6 months in China and drive across in a motorcycle. I think it's more boomers in the older generation weren't really exposed to to an abundance of travel. And once you change your perspective there, like, I will go back to the places I've been before. I will. So like, if I miss something there, I'm not like, oh, bummed out. I don't, have this glorious vision of travels that I've had, because I'm like, I will go back to those places, or I will visit very similar places. Once you change that perspective, I think it's really rewarding, and it just, I don't know, I think it motivates you a little bit too. I don't know. Just, there's a lot to be said about changing that perspective and viewing travel as an abundance and not like this far-fledged vision. Someday I'll do that. Like, do it now.
I agree. And that's a good note to end on, I think. So, Dylan, thank you so much for suffering through this annoying conversation with literally the most annoying guy that you've ever met in your life.
Yeah, it's the voice, the face.
Yeah. I do tell people that I have a punchable voice, but
I like that.
Very few people realize that I also have a punchable face. So, Dylan, how would you like people to follow up with you? Because obviously you would rather die than have them follow you on Instagram. So how...
No. If people can follow me on Instagram, it's DylanOgline.com. It's not DylanOgline.com.
Oh, they can follow you, but not me.
I get it. I only follow my girlfriend. So Yeah.
Well, that's not creepy at all.
I follow one person. Yeah, it's very stalkerish.
Yeah, people are just going to see the one on your Instagram profile and be like, "What is this person
guy
doing?"
Is so weird. You can find me on Instagram, Dylan Ogline, or if you're interested in that agency 2.0 thing that Paul was talking about, visit my website, dylanogline.com.
Cool. Well, Dylan, I wish you all the best. I hope you get to Tokyo and to Japan very, very soon. And I hope that we are all on the road in a carefree kind of way very, very soon. And in fact, I have faith that it's going to happen. I'm foolishly optimistic. And I hope that you share some of that with me. And I wish you all the success.
Sure. Thank you.
Cool. I'm shutting this recording off.